So here's the lesson on 11-7, circles in the coordinate plane. Before we get into the notes, I'd like you to watch this PowerPoint presentation to see how the equation works. The equation of a circle, it looks like this. And you should be familiar with that now from all the work we did on the graphing calculator. You remember that the number comes from inside the parentheses with the x and inside the parentheses with the y. So the radius comes from the right-hand side of the equation. So we'll just break it down. The number inside the parentheses with the x, you take the opposite sign and it becomes the first number of the center. And the number inside the parentheses with the y, you take the opposite sign of it and it becomes the second part of the center. So the center is hk. The radius is going to come from over here on the right-hand side of the equation. That's always a number that's squared, but you take the square root of it, and it becomes the radius. So for example, in this case right here, you have x minus 2 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 5 squared, which would be 25. So the center of the circle is going to be the opposite of negative 2, so it's going to be positive 2. And the y-coordinate will be the opposite here. It would be positive 3, and it would go to the center. The radius is going to be the square root, or the main number there, so that would be 5. And likewise, you can go backwards. If you have a picture, you can turn that into an equation. So imagine that you have a center like this, and a radius like this. To make it into an equation, you take this 4 and you turn it into x minus 4. And you take the second number 1 and you turn it into y minus 1. And then you take the radius and you square it at the end of the equation. So that would be 9 right there. So back to the notes now. Using that information, let's do a few practice problems here. The equation of the circle x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. This gives you the center. The center of your equation is going to be h. It's going to be the number that's grouped there with the x. And then you take the k, the number that comes from the parentheses with y. And the radius is going to be the square root of the number on the right. So it would just be r. And in the picture, it would look like this. Put this in your notes. R. And the center would be h. K. Those are just letters that are randomly chosen, kind of like you use B for the y-intercept, but they come from this formula. H always is inside the parentheses with X, K is always inside the parentheses with Y. So for quick examples, write the equation of each circle. Always go back to the formula. We're going to put parentheses X, and we're going to do the opposite of the number here. This is the first number, this is the second number. So instead of saying x minus 5, it's already negative, we're going to make it plus 5. And then you square that, plus y minus k, the number that goes there is 0, y minus 0, and you square that, and you get the radius, 3 squared. You just plug in the numbers that you have for the x, for the y, and for the radius. So now we simplify what we can. X plus 5 squared. Leave it like that. Don't FOIL it out or anything. But inside here we can simplify that. Y minus 0 is just plain old y, and we square that. And 3 squared is 9. That is the equation of the circle. Coming from a picture, you can do the same thing like number 2. So with this example, number 2, we have a picture instead. So looking at the diagram, figure out what the center is. It's right here, but remember you need to count it from the origin. So it goes to the right 3, and then it goes down 1. So the center is positive 3, negative 1. And then the other thing you need in order to be able to make the equation is the radius. So looking at that circle, count the radius. From center to edge is 1, 2. So the radius is 2. When you make the equation, all we do is plug in the h and the k, and just remember that the sign goes opposite. So it's going to be x minus h. Well, instead of 3, we're going to put minus 3 and square it. And for the y's, we're going to put y plus 1. You go with the opposite sign there. And we square that, and then it equals the radius squared. Well, that's 2, and then you square it. So the final formula looks like this. Simplify if you can, but in this case, there's nothing to simplify. So that's the equation of that circle that you had already. Looking at this equation, think back to what we've been doing for a couple weeks. What's the center? You take the opposite of the number, so it's going to become -1, and the second number is going to become +2, -1, +2, and the radius is the square root of the last number, so that's going to be 3. So to start my graph, I go to -1, 2, -1, up 2. That's my center. Now think about how you would graph it. Make this radius of 3 going in all directions. So make it going up. 1, 2, 3. Make it going down. 1, 2, 3. You're trying to go 3 away from the center. Make it go left. 1, 2, 3. And make the radius go to the right. 1, 2, 3. That gives you a general idea of where the circle is going to be. The hardest part now is drawing it not to look like a box, but drawing it to look like a circle. But you go out to all the places where you marked your radius, where it went out to 3. And there's your circle with the radius of 3. From center to the edge, it will be 3. And the last one, number 4. Looking at this equation, the center, well, it doesn't say x plus or minus anything. So that means we just go with 0. The y says y plus 3, so we do the opposite. We make it -3. And the radius is the square root of the number on the right. Well, the square root of 1 is 1. So we go to the center, 0, -3. That's graphed right here, 0, -3. And we make a radius of 1 in all 4 directions. Here's 1, left 1, down 1, right 1. It's 1 in all directions. So you draw your circle, trying to make it look like a circle, not look like a box. And there you have it.